Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today, we are joined by Rob and Sami, who are going to share their experience of building their family through adoption. So welcome, Rob and Sami.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So guys, one of our goals today is to talk about the reality of adoption, because I think sometimes folks who are looking to adopt are waiting in the profile books, obviously are eager, excited, they go through all the education, the processing, and yep, the goal is to have a baby, right? But then they're placed and reality hits. And I think it can be very overwhelming, very scary, very just a lot of unknown territory for a variety of reasons. If you're first-time parents, navigating open adoption, just the rush of like what actually happens. And that can be really scary. So can you guys kind of touch light on like expectations and the reality of when you were placed and how your lives completely changed?
So that was very well said, because there is a textbook version of, hey, this is what's going to happen. You can expect X, Y, and Z. And you kind of just have to, depending on the situation, you kind of just have to throw that out the door. It's good to prep you so you're not going in completely blind. But for our situation, it was an emergency placement. So we didn't have the opportunity to be with the birth mom from, throughout all those months of her being pregnant. We found out on the day that our son was born, and 5 days later we had to pick him up.
We were only on the books for 3 weeks. You go into adoption and you think oh, it's going to be years or whatever. We had a few things together, but we weren't, I don't know, we were prepared, but the crib wasn't built. Normal stuff wasn't there, so we weren't expecting to be that quick.
I think I misspoke earlier. We found out that we were being shown on the date of his birth. We found out on Valentine's Day 2 years ago that we were picked, and we had to pick him up the very next day. So, we say this all the time that we're first-time parents. So we literally, and I mean that in a literal sense, we became parents overnight. There was no wait period. It was just boom, I'm a dad. It was 4 hours to get to the hospital where we picked them up. I don't even remember driving.
Yeah, so we found out at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The night before, so we had to get everything ready. We had the parents wanted to have a Zoom meeting to meet us real quick, and then they were like, hey, you have to be at the hospital at what time?
It was
noon. Yeah, the next day.
We had the things in his room, and luckily we painted maybe 2 weeks before that, but we didn't have the crib set up. We didn't have the changing table set up. We didn't even have a mattress for the crib. So we had to call our families, and basically everyone just showed up, and this group did the crib, this group did the changing table. We had no idea what a pack and play was, no idea how to even put one together. So my brother-in-law and sister put that together for us, and it was sort of a well-orchestrated.
You almost didn't have time to process it though either. Okay, I have to go get this baby and I have to get this stuff together, but it wasn't. I think even now, because we didn't have that 9-month period, so even now he's eating a yogurt and I'm doing dishes and I'm oh, I'm his mom, I'm Sam's mom.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true, guys, and I'm glad that you're bringing this to light, because people just expect and assume, well, you've done so much to get to this point, right? There was all this buildup of you're going to become parents. So obviously you get that call and it's great, everything's ready, I'm done, here I go, blah, blah, blah. But when you're in the moment, it's not always that way. And we want people to just be okay with not being okay, because we don't want families to get to that point, get the call and be oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I can do this, right? So it's okay. Have grace for yourself. You don't have to have everything ready. Have your support team there. Get the room ready. You don't need that much to care for a newborn baby, but it's okay to not necessarily have all the answers.
I'm a very I don't want to say like perfectionist, but like I have to be ready for everything. Everything's like scheduled, and you kind of have to just be okay with, you gotta roll with it, you know.
Every situation is not going to be perfect. You might have a very good experience. I mean, our experience overall, it was good. I don't want to say we weren't ready, but like I said, we became parents overnight. That kicks in like real quick. Like your internal instincts of being a parent, it's like a flip of a switch. As soon as you see that child, it's like, I'm a parent now, and your instincts take over. So if you're ever worried about like, I'm not going to be worried, this hospital that I have to go to is huge, I might get lost. Okay, you might get lost, yeah, sure, but you'll figure it out. Whether it's the social workers from Adoptions from the Heart or your own support system, you'll figure it out. You'll get to where you need to be.
As you guys are chatting about support people in your life, talk to us about your team and how your extended family members reacted, whether there were good moments, tough moments, and just what that meant for you as you were navigating your own emotions after placement.
I found out with my own infertility when I was 16. My mom has been with me the entire way. She kind of knew, like, since that point, like, this is probably the road we're going to go down.
When we first told them that we were thinking about adoption, it was kind of like, they kind of didn't react, which was...
We were joking, like, we took them out to dinner, and obviously you're nervous, right? Because this is a huge thing to tell someone. We joke sometimes, like, we were like, hey, we're going to do adoption, and they just kind of didn't say anything. They just, like, kept eating their General Tso's chicken.
It was awkward at first. And I think, in most situations, that's how it is. But over time, they became more involved over time. Great resources through Adoptions from the Heart of whether it's like webinars, videos,
we actually
book recommendations.
Yeah, so we bought my mom, his parents, and my grandma all a book about open adoption, because I think at first too, the open adoption part is scary. You do have to put yourself out there that much. A lot of it wasn't the adoption part in general. I think it was the open adoption, because it was scary for them. It was scary for us.
When we first began the whole process, the idea of open adoption was kind of, me personally, I was like, oh, I don't know. And the only reason why I was like that is because I wasn't educated about it. I had my own beliefs about it, but once we went through the classes, once we read all the material, it soon changed, and it's definitely for the best of everyone involved, especially the child. In terms of placement and our family's reaction to that, we made it a point to just let everyone know, like in our support system, like, hey, this could happen. And we were like, it probably won't happen. We're going to be on the book for a while. Just be patient. Like, it will happen when it happens. And then, like, 2 weeks down the line, we're like, hey, we're being shown. Again, we probably won't get picked, so don't get your hopes up.
That's actually how I remember going to see my grandma, and was like, hey, they're going to show us to this mom. But don't get your hopes up. Like, again, like, I even with Sal, like, I was like, we're not going to get picked. We've only been on the books for 3 weeks, and that's okay, because you kind of have to have that mentality. You don't want to get your hopes up too much, and then, you know what I mean?
I think it's important just to provide all those options, like educate your family about those options. Like, hey, we could be on the books for X amount of years. We could be waiting. We could be on the books for a couple months. Our situation, we're on the books for 3 weeks, and just letting them know those expectations that, hey, this could happen or this could happen. So I think sort of like educating them about that, having those, those expectations, it allowed them to, they were surprised, obviously. I mean, same with us, but they were calm, cool, collected for us, so that we could be nervous and stuff.
Too, and I think you guys actually have a transracial talk coming up, right? So with that, like, we even went into our families and said, we could have a baby who he or she might not be a white baby. or you know what I mean? Like we wanted them to be prepared for anything and just make sure that everyone, even though like we didn't have a kid yet, you still have that like instinct to want to protect when you have the kid. So we were very much like, all of these things could happen. You guys need to be okay with that.
I guess one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give to with the early on process before like placement, things like that, just be open, be honest, lay it out on the line. There's nothing to hide. Like the more you hide things, the harder it's going to be when it actually does happen and you have to explain. Not that anything is bad, but just giving them all the information that's there, educating them while you're being educated, simultaneously. I think that helps, and just the whole openness allows for everything to just run more smooth when the time does come.
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit on really important topics. Obviously, education's a big piece when you are looking to adopt. So you guys were required to take several classes to kind of prepare yourselves for a variety of layers of the adoption triad. But to your point, families don't always get that education, right? So I love the fact that you took the opportunity to provide books on open adoption and have conversations about potential transracial adoption. I do want to throw in there that our agency does have online webinars. We have a specific class dedicated to extended family, so that if prospective adoptive families want their family members to learn a little 411 on adoption, they can take those classes and really engage in the education that you guys are going through. Because if not, your support team is left behind, where you guys are already this far in advance of knowing what can happen and preparing yourselves. And it sounds like for you, that made it that much easier through the transition of placement and becoming parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful to hear. Any other advice you would have for prospective adoptive families preparing for what you guys went through? Because we can say things all day long, but until it actually happens and people are like, oh gosh, I got the call, what do I do? Anything else you can say just to prepare for that moment and what life is like post-placement?
I mean, I think we touched on it before, but like, you can't expect that everything's going to go perfectly. So at some point there might be a little bump in the road. You kind of just have to go with it, and it'll work out. And I mean, honestly, with the craziness that we went through that quick, but like, he's amazing. I wouldn't change it for the world. It's gonna happen, but it's worth it.
Yeah, and like the more you think about it, if it is as smooth as like it's supposed to be, you gotta like wonder like something wrong. Like there has to be something that's like a wrench thrown or something that just kind of deviates your path. And that's the journey of it. You just have to accept it, and you have to take that one step forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your story. We've had some really good discussion, and I'm hopeful that this interview will help others as they're preparing for that moment. I'm so happy that you guys were able to build your family. You didn't have to wait super long, which is another stressor on folks. It's so nice to see you guys happy, and I wish you and your family well.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please feel free to check out future episodes and learn more about other adoptive families.